Hey, Lissa,
Yes.
you want to hear some ghost stories?
Do I want to hear ghost stories?
Yes, I may have some ghost stories for you tonight.
Of course, I want to hear ghost stories. Give me like 2 seconds so I can turn off the lights and get the flashlight. Hello, hauntlings. My name is Alyssa, here with my ghoulishly gorgeous wife and co-host, Lindsay, who's going to be hosting tonight's episode. This is Macab at Midnight, where we dive into all things that sit on a scale, starting with the adorably spooky and ending with the truly disturbing. On tonight's episode, Lindsay's going to be telling us about
The Mansfield Reformatory.
woohoo, spooky stuff. But before we get into it, I do want to mention just a couple of things. The first being that my brother is in the room next to me. He is online with his friends, so if you hear him, I am sorry. If there's a weird abrupt pause, it's because he likes to get the dog going whenever we're sitting here in the room talking, and he's talking to his friends. A couple of other things I want to hit on before we get too far into this. In our last couple of episodes, the last one about the Wendigo, I wanted to make a correction. The gentleman who was lost on the Appalachian Trail, we said he went by the moniker Pretty Harmless.
Yeah.
It is actually mostly harmless. His moniker was mostly harmless. So just wanted to correct that. I also wasn't able to find the journal that I was talking to you guys about in the last episode. I'll keep looking. I don't know if it's going to turn up or not. I know I heard a few other podcasters talk about it, so I know it's out there. If I find it, I will update you guys on that when I do. I also wanted to talk about the episode that we did on the amusement parks. The amoeba, we asked about the amoeba and what the amoeba did, and it ate brains. So basically, a zombie amoeba. It would deteriorate the brain. So,
very deadly.
Yeah, very deadly, very scary. With that, we actually had a guy who, he follows us on Instagram. We follow him on Instagram. He is called Crimes, Killers, Cults, and Beer. And he said that he actually remembers going to Pleasure Island before it was Disney Springs. He would go there and they would drink and they would watch some bands. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, sounds like a good time.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been, in its prime.
Right. So there's that. That's pretty cool. Once again, we'd like to remind you guys that if you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe on whatever platform that you listen to podcasts on. Like us, keep listening, and share us with your friends and family. Tell them to like and subscribe. It helps us reach new listeners. It helps people find us. And, the more listeners we do, the more we can start looking to do other projects and maybe like other branch offs of this. We'd like to do narrate some listener stories. If you guys have like fictional horror stories, like creepypasta type stuff, we'd like to talk about your guys' ghost stories. There's a lot that we want to do, so we definitely want that boost. So help us get out there. Once we reach 10 episodes, we can maybe open up a couple of more forms of social media and get some more people on there. So it really helps us out when you guys like and subscribe. So we are trying to get on the Apple platform, but right now we are on all the ones that we have listed previously. That's Deezer, Amazon Music, Audible. You can find them all on our Buzzsprout, all the platforms that we are currently listed on. And our Buzzsprout link is on our Instagram, which is macab_at_midnight_podcast. So just go there, click on that top link, and you'll be able to see what platforms we're listed on, or you can listen right there on Buzzsprout. So, is there anything else, or is that it?
Nope. I think you about touched all of the subjects that needed touched on.
All right, great. So, with that said, I'm going to hand this over to Lindsay, and I'm going to turn out the lights, get this flashlight on, and we are going to do some ghost stories. I'm excited.
All right. Well, without further ado, allow me to introduce you to Mansfield Reformatory.
Oh, I'm allowing.
Also known as the Ohio State Reformatory.
Okay.
And not to be confused with the Ohio State Penitentiary.
Okay.
There are two different locations.
All right.
So the Ohio State Reformatory is, as you guessed it, in Mansfield, Ohio. It was built in 1886 on the grounds of a former Civil War camp.
Oh, okay.
This is where our story begins.
Wow, that didn't take long to get into it all. Holy cow. Hold on, wait. What year was it built?
1886.
1886.
That's when construction began.
Okay.
On the reformatory.
Okay.
The architect that they asked to do it, his name was Levi Scottfield. He had a very specific vision in mind for this place. And actually, like, if you look at pictures of it, the outside of this building is beautiful.
Oh, okay.
It is very pretty. They described it as being half German castle, half Gothic church.
I love that. That sounds like a fairy tale.
It's probably more like a nightmare.
No.
Oh, you'll change your mind.
A dark fairy tale.
Oh, I don't know about that. Okay. Anyways, this location is actually said to be one of the most haunted places in the world.
Ooh-wee.
So it's definitely up there.
Ooh-wee, woo-wee.
Mansfield, Ohio is said to itself to be a very spiritual place.
Like spiritual as in the people are spiritual, or spiritual as in like
the location?
Spiritually filled.
It's like the location, just the people, like the community in general.
Okay, so it's a spiritual community.
It's a hot spot.
So is it ghosts? There's a lot of ghosts?
Well, there's a lot of activity in this prison because of its location and its history.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so the construction on it began in 1886, as I stated. It actually didn't get finished until 1910.
Okay.
The first prisoners were admitted into the prison just 10 years after construction began. In 1896.
1896.
Yes.
How long did when did you say construction ended?
Construction ended in 1910.
1910? So they were still building
They were still building.
People were, okay.
Yes. They were still building whenever they first started taking in prisoners.
I wasn't sure if my brain was like laying that timeline out correctly, but I guess it was. Go on.
It is actually broken another world record for having the tallest freestanding cells, like the systems.
Oh.
I think it was the East cell block has 6 tiers of cells, and that's stacked on top of each other.
Oh man, I've heard that prison is like really loud. I've heard people like in modern day prisons who say they go to prison like they can't sleep, like it's loud. So can you imagine how loud that would be?
No, I can't, especially with as many prisoners as they shoved into this place.
Yeah. Do you know how many prisoners it could hold?
I think just the east side alone was said to have housed about 600 or so.
Holy cow. My guess was 700, but I thought I was like overshooting it.
Yeah, and then the other side, the west wing, was a little less than that. It only had 4 tiers.
Jeez.
So it was a little smaller, but still, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. So 16 tiers.
Right. This prison was originally made with the purpose of being a reformatory.
Okay.
So it actually promoted uplifting and reforming inmates. So it focused on rehabilitating these inmates instead of keeping them imprisoned. So the way it was originally run, prisoners would be sentenced to 18 months, during which they would undergo rehabilitation.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of that 18 months, if they felt that they were suited to go back into society, they were released.
If the facility felt that they were
suited. Yes, if the facility did. If not, they got another 18 months and had to go through the process again. It would continue on this way until the 1960s, when funding would change, and then they converted the prison into a maximum security prison. It went from housing petty criminals, thieves and such, into a maximum security prison.
Jeez.
So just the worst kind of criminals.
Oh my god. Okay. So we got Harley Quinn and the Joker in there.
Yes. So the prison was up and running. It stayed a maximum security prison up until its closing in 1990. So
just here, you're like right.
So it was open for 100 years in operation as a prison before closing in 1990. And the reason why it closed was because the living conditions inside the prison had become so deteriorated that prisoners actually pressed a lawsuit against the facility in the late 70s
because the building was because it was so old.
The building, so the building itself, yes, it was over 100 years old at that point. The cells were small, and it actually had a problem with overcrowding. Overcrowding in the prison began in the 1930s, when they started putting 2 to 3 prisoners inside cells that were meant to house one.
Well, that feels like our bedroom. Can we sue the landlord for overcrowding? Is that how this works?
It was very uncomfortable. That, and they said that the walls were painted with lead paint. So you know how that is with health.
Yeah, that's not good.
So it just, from between the late 70s, I think 78 was when the lawsuit was filed, all the way up into 1990, they were combating this cruel conditions, and eventually the prison closed its doors officially in 1990.
Wow. Okay. That's very recent.
So actually, the prison was originally set to be demolished.
Okay.
After it's closed. But some activists and historians decided to purchase the building and restore it to its historical value. And now it's open as like a tourist spot, museum type deal.
Okay. What did they do on these tours?
Hi, there's a little bit more history before we get into the spooky, okay?
Boo.
So this prison's actually famous, not just for its being haunted. It was the setting for the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
I've never seen it, but I know it won an Oscar. It's a very good film, apparently.
I've heard it.
I've heard it's good.
Yeah.
I just have not sat down to watch it. But yeah, that was filmed there, so they do have a museum and stuff dedicated to that. Okay. So you can visit all of that if you go there.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, this place is said to be extremely haunted. And this is where the ghost stories come in.
All right. So before we get into ghost stories, I want to talk about different types of hauntings, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. There are a few different types of haunting. And I think 3 of the most common types that we see generally are residual hauntings,
yes,
intelligent hauntings, and poltergeist activity hauntings.
Right.
Now, I'm going to guess, and I'll explain what those are here in a minute. I'm going to guess that if there are going to be hauntings in a place like this, it's going to be of those 3 types. And so a residual haunting is basically energy that's left behind in the walls, in the items. These are the sort of hauntings that you get. So like there's usually a trigger for them. Okay. For instance, if the clock strikes midnight, and
it's sort of like an echo of the past.
Yeah,
like
exactly. But
re-happening over and over again.
That's exactly what it is. But like circumstances have to be right. There's usually a trigger for this sort of thing.
Right.
Okay, so that's a perfect description. Yeah, it's like an echo of the past. An intelligent haunting is literally just a person without their flesh suit. Okay, like
flesh suit. That's an interesting way to say body.
It's without your physical world vehicle. All right, so like these guys can interact with you. They can get your attention, or they can try and get your attention. That's what these are. Poltergeisting. A lot of people think poltergeisting is a ghost, but what a poltergeist is actually is it comes from massive amounts of emotional energy being released in one area. So if you move into a house and there's a poltergeist, either someone in your home is releasing massive amounts of emotional energy, okay, or someone who was there before was releasing massive amounts of emotional energy. So poltergeists are not actually spirits. They're just, it's the manifestation of big feelings, basically. So these are the type of hauntings that I'm going to guess that we're going to be dealing with.
That's pretty right on the money considering all the things that happened here in this place.
Yeah, I bet.
And all the accounts that I could find about it. If any of you out there listening have ever visited the prison, whether it was on a ghost tour or
a historical tour.
Yeah. And you had experiences, I'd love to hear about them. Diving right into this, as I mentioned before, the prison dealt with overcrowding starting in the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
The building conditions fell into disrepair somewhere in the late 70s, and they never improved until the Historical Society stepped in and started restoring the building.
Right.
So I think that's probably where we start with some of this stuff. Bad things happen when you put too many people in a small space.
Yeah.
Kind of idea.
Okay.
We'll start here. There were at least 2 recorded killings of guards on duty there at the prison. The first one that I found was in 1926. A 72-year-old guard was shot and killed during an attempt to an escape by another inmate.
Okay, so first of all, what is this man doing working at the age of 72?
I don't know. I mean, he could have been right there on the cusp of retirement. It didn't say.
The cusp of retirement was like 7 years ago, I think.
Some people don't retire.
Well, I don't know what the age of retirement at that in that year was either. But I'm just saying, if I'm 72 and I'm going to be working, it is not going to be in a prison. Okay.
Yeah, you got to be made of tough stuff to be 72 and still working in a maximum security prison. Well, I guess back then, in the 1920s, it was still a reformatory. It was still light petty criminals. So for someone to have been shot by a petty criminal,
I think
that's something.
Yeah, gotta be tough stuff just to be 72. But anyway, go on.
The second recorded death of a guard was in 1932. This was a 48-year-old guard who was actually ambushed and beaten to death by 12 inmates in their attempt to escape.
Oh my God.
And he was actually beaten to death with an iron bar.
So was this like during lunch hour or something? Like, how do 12 inmates?
It didn't say.
Or is it still reformatory?
No, this is still during. It didn't become a maximum security prison until the 1960s.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
So these inmates were just like, they wanted out.
Well, apparently.
And they rioted and beat the crap out of this guy.
Well, that's sad.
Yes, and it doesn't stop there.
Of course it doesn't. It wouldn't be on our podcast if it stopped there.
So, in July of 1948, 2 prisoners that were paroled from the reformatory. They were known as the Mad Dogs, the Mad Dog Killers. Oh. They went on a 2-week killing spree.
In the reformatory?
No, not in the reformatory,
okay.
But it's related to the reformatory.
Okay.
The article I read said that they were looking for revenge against a specific prison guard at the time, but because they couldn't locate him, they hunted down the superintendent
Oh my God.
of the prison at the time. They kidnapped him, his wife, and their daughter.
Oh my gosh.
Took them out to a field and executed them.
What?
And those were just 3 deaths out of the 6 that they committed during their killing spree.
What the hell?
They were actually captured in a city not far from Mansfield. During a shootout, one of them was shot dead during the shootout. The other one was captured and arrested. And they interviewed him before his execution because he was executed.
What do you think they looked like?
What do you mean? What are
these guys? Like, what are you picturing?
I've seen a picture of him.
Oh, well.
Or at least of one of them. I've seen a picture of him. He did not look like a killer. I will say that. He definitely didn't look like somebody who would kill somebody.
Well, you know what? Neither did Ted Bundy.
Like, this guy, like, I'll have you look up a picture of him because I have his name. He looked like a clean-cut guy.
Yeah.
And what was really creepy about his interview before he was electrocuted, he died by electric chair.
Uh-huh.
Before he was executed, he was talking about how he just wanted to get revenge and how he was going to die by the electric chair. And then he looked at the camera and he winked.
Ew.
Yes.
What?
Yes, he did.
He knew what he was doing. He was like, I am gonna come back and haunt the shit out of this place. I hate that. He looked at the camera and he winked.
He looked at the camera and he winked.
What is wrong with these freaking people? Like, you hear these stories about these guys, like, on death row, and, like, their reactions sometimes are just, like, chilling. Like, what?
I know it.
Oh, wait, no, that was his interview.
It's his interview. It's unsettling.
Okay, well, it's still unsettling. Yeah, like...
I mean, he was talking about the people he killed, though.
Yeah.
And he obviously wasn't sorry about it.
Yeah, no.
He was just like, yeah, I just wanted to kill that guy.
That is so awful. That's freaking wild. Oh, my God. Continue, please. Now I'm all tense over here, like... Yeah, oh, there's more.
Oh,
Great.
yes. So, moving forward...
Mm-hmm.
In 1950, the wife of the then warden of the reformatory, his name was Arthur Glack, I think is how that's pronounced. His wife was, I guess, digging through a closet or something, and a box had fallen out of the closet. The box contained his gun.
Okay.
When the box fell, the gun fired.
Oh, no.
And it shot a fatal shot into her.
Oh, wow. What a way to die.
Yeah. And apparently after this happened, he was really torn up about it.
Mm-hmm.
His health would then deteriorate, and a few years later, he would die in his office inside the prison by a heart attack.
Oh, jeez, man.
And actually, the reason why I decided to give out his name is because he was known throughout the prison as someone who was putting in a lot of positive change. Like, he had classical music playing for the inmates, like calming classical music to help, uplift their spirits and all this.
Okay.
And I guess there was a scene from the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Where one of the characters is actually in his office and they play music over the loudspeaker, and like that was sort of like a nod towards this warden.
Oh, okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah, so that's a cool.
So he
thing,
was trying to.
He was a good guy who just had bad luck.
Things a little bit better for them. That sucks.
And then he passed away in the office in the prison. But we just keep going. We just keep going to this death toll. Okay, because there's still more. There's still more. So, like every other prison, or the ones I assume, like maximum security prisons have, is solitary confinement, right?
Yeah.
You've heard of solitary confinement, yeah?
Yeah, I have. I just don't like where this is going.
Okay. Good. It's not going to a good place. It's not getting better. All right. Okay. Solitary confinement at the Mansfield Reformatory was actually located underground. Under the prison. Yes.
What?
It was referred to as the hole.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it called the hole before, and now I'm wondering how many solitary confinements are underground.
So the hole was a really small, dark, confined space underground. Inmates were taken to, whenever they misbehaved, and left in isolated cells down there where there was little to no light. So they were just like dropped in complete darkness.
So I just want to say, and this might be controversial, but I really don't think solitary confinement is humane. Like, and I understand that these people are bad people who've done horrible things. I watch true crime interviews all the time. Okay. But like, it does something to your brain when you are just like in a room with no ability to measure your circadian rhythm, no sound, like it does no light. It does something to your brain. And they actually have like these like things that you can get in, and it like closes off all your senses, like the water.
Yes.
You
I know what you're talking about.
And like I've heard that can like, it can cause you to hallucinate.
It can make you go crazy. It can make you lose your mind.
So I don't have any like science to back this up, but this is something that I was taught in my psychology courses. So, I don't think solitary confinement, like if you're going to freaking put people away for doing bad things, fine. But I don't think solitary confinement should be that. It needs to be just like a cell off on its own.
So I don't know what the stipulations were back then, but the jails that I have interned at in the past, as far as like solitary confinement, it was really just like a holding cell.
Okay, yeah.
That they would separate the misbehaving inmates in for a while.
Okay.
And they had a guard there, like, on duty for that area. And they had, like, cameras in the cell. So they could see what's going on. But, like, this is back in, you know, those times where they didn't have all that. So they literally just put them in a dark cell and underground and left them there for
that's not okay.
a certain amount of time. Speaking of which, there was an incident down in the hole where they took 2 prisoners down into solitary confinement and put them in the same cell.
Oh no, they're gonna.
So later, it didn't say how much later, just later, when they went to retrieve the inmates, only one of them walked out of that cell alive. The other inmate was found dead, but he had been stuffed under the bunk.
Stuffed under the bunk?
Stuffed under it.
How did he kill him?
Didn't say. Just said that he
just stuffed him under the bunk?
Stuffed his body under the bed.
Are the bunks, like, really low to the ground?
If they're anything like any bunk I have seen in places like this, they are small cots with not a lot of space.
Oh.
Plus, you got to think these are cells that are meant to hold one person, and they're cramming two or more people into these cells to begin with.
I mean, I've never seen a cell, so I've never, you know.
Well,
I've been lucky enough to not.
And the jails now aren't like that, but this one was built in the 1800s. So the cells weren't big.
Okay.
The beds weren't big.
Okay.
You could probably look up pictures of it, of the interior, and see.
Yeah, we'll post some on our Instagram.
So there's that. And then there was another man who was taken down into the hole, and he was found to have somehow found a way to hang himself.
Oh.
While he was down there.
You put someone in a room with no light, with nothing, and they find a way to hang themselves. Themselves.
Yep.
Someone's not doing their job right.
I mean, like I said, I'm pretty sure they would just stick these people down there in the dark, underground, and leave them there.
This is dark, guys.
Until they felt it was time for them to come out.
Whew. Man, this is dark. I'm trying to make light of it, but I can't. I can't see through the dark. It's too thick.
Yeah. There was this one, to me, is probably one of the worst deaths here in the Reformatory. I believed it happened somewhere between the 50s and the 60s.
Okay.
This I found in an article that was it was about the visit that Ghost Adventures took to Mansfield Reformatory.
Not sponsored.
Right. Yeah, we're not sponsored by them. But anyways, they interviewed a couple of people who went through the prison and like experienced it. They interviewed like a prisoner, former prisoner, and then a former guard. And this story came from that former prisoner.
Okay.
I think his name was DJ Fly or something like that.
DJ Fly. That sounds like a DJ name.
Like, yeah. Anyways, he said that the guy in the cell next to him, he, and trigger warning for this one as well, he committed suicide by dousing his entire body with paint thinner and then setting himself on fire.
Oh my God. Are you freaking kidding me? Oh, that's painful.
No, and apparently the prisoner who was in the cell next to him said that the flames were so intense that he was worried he was going to go up in flames himself.
Jeez, good God. And you know what bothers me about that? Again, I watch a lot of true crime stuff. It is really hard to burn a human body. Do you know that? Like, that is something, like, I've seen in a lot of true crime where, like, they'll try to dispose of the body, but, like, human bodies don't actually catch on fire that easily, you know? So that's freaking horrifying. Like, I remember watching one where, like, the guy, like, doused her body in gasoline.
Yeah.
He couldn't get her to burn. He could not get her to burn. So I'm just, like...
And you had to think, like, how long it takes, even with an accelerant.
Oh, God.
How long and painful that would have been.
So
like,
painful.
What a way to go.
God.
And I believe this happened in that cell block that's very tall. The 6th tier.
Yeah. 6th tier?
6th tier cell block.
I was saying 16 tier earlier. I was picturing 16
Oh, no,
tiers.
it's 6 tiers.
I mean, 6th tier is still really tall.
That's still one of, like, the tallest
that's still really tall.
cell block in the world. But that's just crazy. And you can imagine like that leftover, what's left over.
And the smell. Oh, God.
And they said, but by the time that the guards got to him, he was already dead.
Yeah, I
like
freaking
there
bet
was,
he was
no way, nothing they could do like to put out the flames. So they said that he was still smoldering.
No.
While they pulled his deteriorating body out of the cell block.
Good God, I don't need that visual. That is so bad. That is so awful.
Other suicides happened in that same cell block. There was somebody who said, these are inmates, by the way. There's someone that said they jumped from the 5th tier.
Jeez.
To their death.
Yeah.
Another person hung themselves by tying their sheets to the railing and then jumping over the edge.
Oh, man. So it happened.
Yeah, people were dying
there
in this prison. There were, like I said, there were riots, people trying to escape, people dying from that. Now, visitors and staff, former inmates, have all reported hearing whispering, sounds of cell doors closing or opening. Some people have seen shadow people walking along the walkways on the cell blocks.
So let's talk about shadow people for a minute then. Let's talk about that. If you don't know what shadow people are. Okay, shadow people are dark entities. They're negative entities. They're generally drawn to really negative places that have a lot of bad energy. We don't really know a lot about them, but they are not good, and they are so dark. They're called shadow people, but it's not like looking at a shadow. It's like looking at the blackness, like you cannot peer through it. So, shadow people are never a good thing.
Right. They said that the prison guard that was beaten to death outside the hole by the 12 people who tried to escape haunts that area.
Yeah.
So there's been reports of people like interacting with him in their visits to the prison.
What kind of things does he do? Like, what kind of experiences do they have with him?
It's just mostly just like there's a lot of touching, a lot of whispering. Women say that their hair gets pulled
by the
not the guard. Women get their hair pulled when they're walking through the cell blocks.
Oh,
so if you get too close to certain cell blocks, you might feel your hair getting pulled or something.
I don't like that.
There's also a on-site cemetery.
Okay. Where they would like bury the inmates?
Yeah, so any inmate that died on the property and their bodies were never claimed by family members or anyone.
Yeah.
They were just buried in a numbered grave behind the prison.
A numbered grave?
They were buried by their inmate number. Not even their name, just their inmate number.
That is so... I understand that these people were inmates, but that's freaking dehumanizing. And here's the thing is, like, not everybody who goes in... I don't know. I have really conflicting feelings, because, like, you think of people, the Night Stalker, Gacy, or Edward Gein, they dehumanized other people. So, you know, they're literally garbage. Human garbage.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, there's just something in my brain that is like, you can't put someone in a grave and
not have their name.
Put their name on it.
Think about it. Like, when a person goes to prison, they are given numbers so that way they are taken down that notch. I'm not going to address you by your name anymore. You are now a number.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And I don't know. I also feel like it's important if you imagine if like Edward Gein, I don't know where he's buried, okay, or Gacy or whatever. Imagine they're buried and you just put a number on their grave. I feel like that's a good way to forget about them, though, and what they did.
Right.
I think it's important not to forget about what these people did. You know what I mean?
Well, and to put it in perspective as to how haunted this place might be, because, you know, this might add to it a little bit. There are over 215 numbered graves in that cemetery. So over 200 bodies that were never claimed.
I was going to ask you, actually, do you think that maybe these hauntings are going on because these people are stuck there because they've basically been, they're less dead? You know what I mean? Or, I don't know.
They were never given a real burial. They were just put in the ground, you know.
Grave. Or not a mass grave, but yeah.
It's basically a pauper's field.
Right.
And you asked me if this is why I think this place might be haunted. I think it contributes to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the rest of it is just horrific death. I mean, some of those deaths were just like very traumatic, very violent.
Yeah.
Very sudden. Like even the guard that was shot in the head during an escape, I'm sure he didn't go into work that day thinking he was going to die.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure. So, do they do haunted tours?
Yes, actually, you can. Like I said, it's a historical place now. They have a museum dedicated to the Shawshank Redemption movie because it was filmed there. They do ghost tours, guided tours, and I think they still do the free roam tours, like the lockdown tours. I'm not for certain on that.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I looked. I do know to go on that one, you have to be like 21 plus years old to do it. But yeah, you can go in and explore and experience everything for yourself if you choose to do so. Like I said, there are areas where women are specifically more targeted than men.
Yeah.
So
was
maybe go with caution.
Was this like an all men's rehabilitation center?
Yes, it was strictly for men.
Okay. Because I know, sometimes they'll like have men's and women's and they just keep them like separated.
Right. No, everything I found, this was completely a men's reformatory from the time that it was built to the time that it closed.
Okay. So we got shadow people. You can hear the prison cells closing. We got whispering. We've got hair pulling. Is there anything else?
Nothing that I could find that was not some of the same things, but like in different intensity level.
So I think a historical tour there would be fun. I think that's something that we should go do sometime. And I would highly recommend that you guys go check it out too. If you guys have any stories or experiences about this place, of course, we would love to hear them.
Yeah, Mansfield. I've been to Mansfield.
Yeah. Oh, you have?
I have. I've driven there. I used to have a friend that lived there.
Have you been to the reformatory?
I have not been to the reformatory. I know of it. I knew of it. I've seen a lot of shows about it. There's been a lot of paranormal teams that have gone through it. Like I said, I know Ghost Adventures went. I'm not sure. There's probably a ton of others that have been through there. I think World's Scariest Places have been through there.
Okay. Cool.
That was a TV show.
Well, so that is Mansfield Reformatory?
Yes, or the Ohio State Reformatory.
That's pretty freaking cool. I think that would be really neat to visit. I think we should check it out sometime. So that was good. Thanks for that, Lindsay. With that, we did have another bit of constructive criticism that we were given by a listener. And I think we're going to go ahead and give it a go. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at some urban legends to fill the rest of the time. And I think that's how we're going to start filling the gap. We're going to try and make all of these at least an hour. If they run a little over, then, they run a little over. But if they're short, I think we're going to go ahead and fill the gap with urban legends. So I've got a couple of those here. Let's look at some urban legends. All right. So this first legend, we're going to go ahead and stick to some Ohio urban legends. This first one is the Werewolf of Defiance. Have you heard of this one? Ohio's your home state.
I have not, but I actually lived in Defiance, Ohio for a couple of months back in my college days.
You're lucky you weren't got by a wolf. So this is actually on a website called astonishinglegends.com. So I'm going to read this. It all began in the summer of 1972. On July 5th, 1972, Ted Davis, a railroad worker, was on the Norfolk and Western train lines. As he worked, he noticed something strange. He saw two hairy, huge paws on the ground in front of him. Confused and likely scared, he slowly raised his eyes and saw before him a creature at least 6 feet tall, hunched over, holding a large wooden board. Before Ted had a moment to react, it hit Ted on the shoulder. It hit Ted on the shoulder and ran away. It appears, in Ted's telling, that this attack was totally out of the blue and perhaps even pre-planned, as the creature had brought a weapon. Just a few days later, still processing the events from earlier in the week, Ted and his colleague Tom Jones were back out and working. On July 30th, they both witnessed the return of this creature. This time they saw it from a safe distance, prowling in the bushes. The werewolf-like creature startled and ran away. The men decided to file a police report in hopes that the warnings of this potentially dangerous creature would spread. The police, despite the weird happenings, agreed to start an investigation. Chief Donald Breckler said to the news media, "We don't know what to think. We didn't release it to the news media when we got the first report about a week ago. But now we're talking and taking it seriously. We're concerned about the safety of our people." A third sighting occurred, but don't worry, for once Ted was not involved. A grocery store employee was driving home from a late shift when he saw an impossibly large dog-like creature matching the previous descriptions in front of his car. A slight panic began to enter the town, and several newspapers, including the Toledo Blade and the Defiance Crescent News, covering the strange sightings.
Wow. When was this? What year was this?
1970-something, I think it said.
Jeez.
In general, it was agreed that the werewolf was a large humanoid in some way. Some reports even said it was wearing jeans. It was also reported as being bipedal, but severely hunched over. Newspapers did report, interestingly enough, that none of the events happened during a full moon. Most reports of potential werewolf sightings come flooding in, and for a few weeks, everyone was high on alert. But then reports began to fall away, and the Defiance wolf has not been seen since the summer of 1972. And
maybe he moved away.
Let me see if I can see who this was written by. I want to give credit to the writer. This is a suggestion by John G. Doesn't say who wrote the paper. But yeah, that is on Astonishing Legends. So, you're lucky you didn't get got by a werewolf, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'm glad I wasn't up there anytime during the 70s or whatever.
I mean, maybe he would come back for you. So you think of that werewolf?
What do I think about it?
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't get got by a werewolf, Lindsay.
I don't know what to think about it.
Do you think that there's a werewolf running around somewhere in Defiance, Ohio?
Not anymore, apparently.
Okay. We'll do one more. This one is a classic. This one's traditional urban legend. It is a traditional urban legend. This one really bothered me when I was younger. A lot of you probably know this one. Mm-hmm. This one is called the Licked Hand.
I have never heard of that.
Oh, good, Lindsay. You're gonna know why I lock the doors at night. Is what you're gonna do. A beautiful young girl is left home alone with only her dog to protect her. On the news that night, they announce that there's a serial killer on the loose in the area. Before she goes to bed, she locks all her doors and tries to lock all the windows, but the one in the basement won't lock. She decides to leave it unlocked, but locks the basement door and goes to bed. Her dog takes its customary place under her bed. In the deep of the night, she awakens to a dripping sound coming from her bathroom. Oh, guys, definitely, listener discretion. If you haven't heard this one, listener discretion is advised. Because,
Trigger warning.
Trigger warning. Half awake, the girl feels the comforting lick from her dog and falls back asleep.
That's not the dog.
She reawakens to the dripping sound, reaches her hand down to the dog where she feels reassuring lick and falls back asleep once more.
Bro, then wake up, that ain't your dog.
Again, she awakens to the dripping sound and reaches down and feels her dog licking her hand. Now curious about the dripping sound, she gets up and slowly walks toward the bedroom. The dripping sound is getting louder as she approaches. She reaches the bathroom and turns on the light. She's greeted by a horrific sight.
Oh my god, it's not the dog, is it?
Hanging from the shower nozzle is her dog.
No!
And blood dripping into the bathtub. Hug your puppies. Something in the bathroom mirror catches her eye. She turns around. Written on the wall in her dog's blood are the words humans can lick too. Dog didn't like that one.
That stressed her out. Me too.
Oh, listen, I would definitely know if my dog was licking my hand because she got a cold little tongue. She's got a cold tongue. So, yeah, those are our urban legends. If you guys have urban legends you'd like us to fill in our shorter episodes with, send them to us because we would love to have them.
Oh. We almost forgot, Lissy. We almost forgot.
No, we got to rate.
What would you rate Mansfield Reformatory on a scale of adorably spooky to truly disturbing?
I would rate it as truly disturbing.
I agree. There were a lot of deaths. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, no executions.
Yes.
And the place is one of the world's most haunted locations.
Truly disturbing.
Indeed so.
All right.
So was your little urban legend there, by the way.
Yes, my urban legend.
Gross.
I can't believe you never heard that one. But yeah, guys, so if you enjoy our podcast, like and subscribe, share us, tell people about us. If you have urban legends or spooky stories or spooky things you want us to check out, then email us at macab@midnight@outlook.com. Make sure to find us on Instagram. That is macab_@_midnight_podcast. Over there, you can get your updates on when episodes will be released, teasers on what the next episodes are going to be, as well as updates to other things. And
we post photos of locations and things that we discuss.
Yes, we post photos, so you'll be able to find your photos on there as well. Until next time, stay scary, and we will see you in your nightmares.